Jiggy Look Back! Welcome to the very first edition of Jiggy Look Back, where we take a good old looky-poo at some of gaming's finest moments. We analyze and maybe try to peel back those nostalgia blinders to see what was truly great and what was just enjoyable because we were young and stupid. Here on this channel, I'm not going to limit myself to a specific console or system necessarily, but to do things right, I need to start from the beginning. My beginning. The game that started it all for me on the very first console I ever owned. The legendary Donkey Kong 64. Now, I know what you're thinking. Whenever mentioning this game, you can't help but get a lot of ughs from the crowd. And it's always the same story for every single person. There are too many collectibles. And don't get me wrong, I can understand why people would say that. I mean, this game is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most collectibles. But let me just say, and this could be nostalgia blindness, but I don't care. I freaking love collectibles and this mother-grabbing game. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Believe you me, we will have a whole segment on freaking collectibles. We'll go through all the items you can get later, essential, non-essential, usable, all of them. And we're going to take everything level by level. But for now, I wanted to work my way up to that. I want to start with the very beginning of the game. No, not that beginning. Oh, heck yeah. Immediately this intro draws you into the game. I think Rare always excels at intros. Conker has a great intro. Banjo had a great intro. They really knew what they were doing. Apart from the animation being amazingly cartoony and the song being a bop, this does an amazing job at establishing the characters' different personalities. I freaking love this thing. It's so stupid, but full of that Rare charm that I just adore in every way. I mean, how could you not? Just look at Chunky. I remember laughing so hard when he smacks Lanky out of frame. Classic. You have Donkey Kong. You know, he's the leader. He's got the gun. Not much was needed to say for 5-year-old me to say, oh, I like Donkey Kong. As I've grown to realize how kind of vanilla his personality is, I mean, I'd argue he has the least amount of personality in the game. He's like that jock in high school that's popular, but only because he's the quarterback. And later in life, you're like, I don't know why I really thought he was that cool. But, you know, he's the leader. He's the first member. It is what it is. Then we're introduced to Tiny. Now, I'm going to be honest. I know it's 2022 and all, but this was 1999 and I was 5. I was automatically deciding that I didn't like to play as the girl because, you know, I was a boy and girls were ucky. Although, that being said, as I played Tiny, she became probably my second favorite. I love that she could fly with her hair, and the fact she shrunk was awesome to me, and I loved exploring all the little nooks and crannies. But I definitely wasn't going to tell my friends I liked Tiny, so I was a secret Tiny fan. Also, just for the record, did anyone else get frustrated you couldn't run up the trees like the rap intro? I was always thinking I just couldn't figure it out, but I digress. Then comes Lanky, and he was pretty goofy. Probably was my least favorite overall, if I'm being honest. Now I see he has a lot of personality, and he's just silly, and he's a lot of fun, but I just hated the inflation move, and that just wasn't that great to me. I did love the little wow thing he did. That was cool, but eh. But now, we're getting into my favorite Kong. Diddy! Diddy I actually knew before this game because my cousin had a Super Nintendo, and I played Donkey Kong Country 2 on it. Diddy's Conquest was like one of my favorite games on Super Nintendo. So he was the dopest, and you know he was the dopest because they play the electric guitar underneath, and that makes his section, you know, rockify the crap out of it. He had it all. The hat, the twin peanut pistols, the jetpack. He also gave me the first compulsive way of movement in a game, the cartwheel to jump to tailspin combo. He also just seemed generally a little faster than everyone, which I loved. Now we're on to Chunky. And while I do think several Kongs fit in the 90s, Chunky is the 90s. The backwards hat just says it all. What can I say? Chunky makes me laugh. His cowardly attitude, being the strongest and biggest, but yet he's the most scared. I loved In the Barrel when he tells you to pick Tiny. It's hilarious. Also, he plays the triangle. It's too funny. Not to mention, he could be giant and squish stuff, so that was pretty cool. All in all, I think this cast is awesome and dynamic. You get a little bit of flavor with everyone. This intro is enough to pump you up for the rest of the game. And now that we finished talking about this intro, let's get into the start of the game. Here we watch the opening cutscene that establishes King K's role in the plot of the game. I always loved the animation of the Kremlings here and the voice acting in general. Not a lot of N64 games had actual voice acting, so that was pretty unique on the console. The pink guy is hilarious. It does a great job of making K roll an intimidating bad guy. And honestly, then when I saw the Kongs, I was like, no! They're all put behind bars. I feel so bad. They're in the little monkey prisons. It was the worst.
Your Excellency, we've already taken care of business.
I hope for your sake you're right this time.
Once we get past all the cutscenes and mandatory plot, we can start moving around and, you know, take a look at all this game has to offer. And now into the hub world. Now, as far as hub worlds go, this game definitely isn't my favorite, but it's definitely not my least favorite either. It's a solid hub world. The very first area you start out in has a few nooks and crannies to explore, but not much to do at first. You do find Cranky, and then you can get some super fun training barrels. Wow, just what I wanted. What's really funny is, I played this game so much in my life, and recording for this video, only now did I read, if you're on a vine or a rope and hit R, you turn around. I couldn't believe I learned a new mechanic in a game I've played almost my whole life. I'm pretty sure I skipped all the text because that seems to be what I do now, and I can't imagine myself having matured much since I was 5. To get past the initial banana board tree fort section, you come out to the island. This I love. You can explore all over. You've got a few enemies with the beavers and the bees and the Kremling across the way. I always loved how what island you went to, they had a different theme or variation of the island theme. Even underwater, it was slightly different. That was an excellent touch Rare used to put in all their games. It also gives you like a distinct feel for each area, which just adds to the ambience, and it's really cool. Finally, after you've explored a bit, you find K Lumsy, who is a giant, goofy lizard, and you agree to help him, and he unlocks the first world and your very first golden banana by getting super excited and bouncing in his cage. I always loved his animation and the noise he made. It always made it satisfying when you find a key and you unlock his cage and he gets excited. And then boom, your first golden banana. Fun fact, I'm allergic to bananas, but I won't let that stop us from enjoying these. Now we can finally enter our first world, Jungle Japes. Let's get into it. Worth noting, there's a brief section between the island and Jungle Japes where you have to unlock the level based on your golden banana count. You can also get some helpful hints on where to get golden bananas from Cranky's wife in ghost form. I personally never used that, so I don't think it was really that important in the long run, but I suppose if you get stuck and want to collect everything, it could be useful. But I digress. Into Jungle Japes we go. Here we are, Jungle Japes. As far as first levels go, I've always wanted to point out how similar this is to Mumbo's Mountain in Banjo-Kazooie. Just with the aesthetic and the fact there's a giant termite-looking structure here, very similar. It's different enough to make it distinct, but I never hear anyone say it, so I thought I would. Let's start with the music. I love it. It's got those classic bongos that make me think of DK, and the way the animal noises come in breathe life into the level and make it feel like a real jungle. Not to mention the main melody is a bop. And again, you have the transition track, so when you enter a cave, the track changes to reflect that, and the transition is super smooth. As far as the whole aesthetic of the place, I think it looks good. Lots of trees and vines to swing on, and even a big one to climb. And not to mention the dark caves with dynamic lighting and the stormy section by Cranky's. It had a vibe, and it feels very Donkey Kong. To me, I've always thought this world felt a little small in the long run, and while it does have its secrets and minigame stages like the minecart ride, overall, you could cross this entire map fairly quickly. It's not necessarily bad for it to be small. I found myself able to collect everything for DK and Diddy fairly quickly. I also thought I should say I'm doing this organically, kind of in an order of unlocking the levels, so Lanky, Tiny, and Chunky's portion for this level will be revisited later under a section I'm going to call Backtracking. As far as goals go, nothing feels incredibly hard or out of reach on a first playthrough. The minigames like DK's Barrel Blast and Diddy's Minecart Ride are simple enough, but this does lead me into two things I dislike about this game. One is the freaking battle arenas. These aren't hard by any means, but they feel like fodder and not important at all. Well, I don't think it breaks the game, I just don't particularly like them. I'd rather fight a certain number of opponents and be done than infinite over a timer. I do like the satisfaction of getting a crown at the end, but that's about the only positive thing to say about them. Honestly, you could get rid of them out of the game and I wouldn't miss them one bit. See, look! Now I have to start this all over! So annoying. The other thing I dislike is collecting blueprints. Now I know what you're probably thinking, the blueprints are easy to get and in the end they help you. And sure, okay, I agree. I just find it super annoying that though you find the Kremling to defeat, he's a different color, so you have to go change out to another Kong and come back to get the blueprint. This is like super padding for the game, which is never a good thing. And on top of that, you have to watch the same cutscene to collect your golden bananas for the blueprints. It takes forever. I just never liked it, even as a kid. Now relive my horror. Now, let's move on to gameplay. Here, it's got some good ideas. I love the coconut gun, and acquiring it is awesome. Funky's hilarious, and I love his blowing stuff up attitude. I'll say that I dislike how this switches our specific character weapons. I'd much rather it be a blank switch that you just generally have to use a gun on. We have so many different ways to specify characters that I don't think this should be one. You can also unlock Donkey's Barrel Blast minigame, which actually I think is pretty fun, until it's not. And then you have to play it because you keep missing that one collectible and then it causes you to miss the barrel and you have to start again and again and again. It's fine, but maybe it doesn't need collectibles in between the barrels? Oh my gosh, what a novel idea. Here we get to unlock Diddy, and as I've mentioned before, he's my favorite. He feels faster, but all in all, his gameplay is very similar to Donkey. He gets his peanut pistols, which function the same, but what he does get that's different is his super fast running move. Now, I like this move, however, they really put you into a box when using it. It's very situational. It's not like the Talon Trot in Banjo-Kazooie that makes you go faster for as long as you want. This move only lets you get a short burst of speed before Diddy stops. It just feels clunky and a missed opportunity to give people more of a reason to be Diddy. I'd love to be able to just use this move freely and run around. Even if it was a straight charging move, it would give you a real reason to move fast across the map and play as Diddy. It could have been cool. It could have been cool, Rare. I mentioned this before, but Diddy does have a minecart minigame on this level, and it's pretty kick butt. It's a nice change of pace from the standard gameplay, and I have an obsession with collecting the coins. The atmosphere in the mineshaft is also really impressive for the N64. I just love watching the lighting moving around and all the other carts flying by and the sound effects, and it's just, everything about it's super cool. I also should mention before moving on that there's a brief section in the Stormy area where DK can transform into Rambi the Rhino. Honestly, it's such a letdown. Although he's fun to play as, there isn't much you can actually do with him. It could have been more, but whatever. I just thought I'd mention it. I'm not bitter. I just really wanted to use him and like be able to run around and, you know, kick some beaver butt. But no, I can't do that. We gotta break these stupid huts. And that's it. And this one wall. And that's it. And you go anywhere else, and you automatically change back. Ugh. Now we're on to my favorite mechanic of this game we're introduced to. Stuffing this hippo's face with bananas to open the boss door. I just loved this so freaking much as a kid, and I still do. I want to make him as big as possible, which is actually where I'm disappointed. The game limits you to the specific amount of bananas on the door, even though you can collect 100 bananas with each character. Ugh! I want to make him huge. It's just disappointing. I'm still going to collect them all, though, because that's what heroes do. And finally, we're at the boss fight. Well, what can I say? Pretty standard boss fight. Hit him 3 times and he's out. He's a big armadillo with cannons. It's kind of funny. I enjoyed the fight, but it doesn't feel particularly challenging. But I guess it's not supposed to be because it is the first boss. I've got to say, I don't really care for the barrel throwing, though. It works, but I'd rather do something like throw my oranges at him. Or even better, use my gun to block his cannons. Yeah, that'd be really cool. And then they blow up, and then he's like, that'd be so much more fun than just throwing barrels at a specific time. Well, anyways, that's Jungle Japes in a nutshell. If I had to give it a score on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it a 7.5. It's pretty solid, it has good music, good aesthetic, and does a decent job at introducing different elements to the game. I think it's hindered by some things that honestly affect the entire game itself, but even looking past that, it still feels pretty small. This time we're trudging our way into Angry Aztec. Just like before, there's a brief section in between the hub and the level. Nothing major to report other than this old stick in the mud. It does have some secrets, but we'll do those later. We do get to watch a brief cutscene in between the hub and the level. And I gotta say, this really made me feel bad for the armadillo. Why'd we have to beat him up so bad? Just look at him, he's shaking. He's so cute. Oh. This also makes K. Rool kind of scary. Look at those eyes! Okay, into the level. Now we're in the level. I've got to say, the beginning here is a bit more mysterious than Jungle Japes. This is really due to the soundtrack. Jungle Japes immediately has fast-paced and upbeat melodies, while here we start in a tunnel with some more low-key flute playing. But suddenly, we're out of the tunnel, and the music really picks up, starting with a big gong. I love how the flute picks up and really makes you feel like you're more in the open. I've got to say, though, I don't think this track is as strong as Jungle Japes or DK Isle, for that matter. Now we have a new opportunity in this level, and that comes in the form of the weirdly sexualized girlfriend of Donkey Kong, Candy Kong. I just want to point out that Kong isn't a last name, it's a species, like Kremlings. They just kind of also use it like a name. I just wanted to point that out so I could, tell you that they aren't related. There's nothing weird going on here, besides the fact that these are anthropomorphic talking monkeys. Now, Candy gifts each Kong a musical instrument that they can use on a specific music pad and trigger things in the world, and also to defeat any enemy in their immediate vicinity. I enjoy how each Kong has their own unique instrument that reflects their personality. Did he his best. So this level has a few very special things about it. Most notably, Tiny and Lanky can both be found locked away in these temples, and you can rescue them to add to your roster. It's also the first level where Diddy's jetpack is introduced, and boy is this dope. You can fly around and shoot your guns at the same time. It gives you access to places previously inaccessible, like on top of structures, and gives you a fun way to explore around. As long as you have crystal coconuts, that is. The music that plays is also super dope. You get a fun, but albeit short challenge with this vulture, but other than that, not too much to do with it besides explore and get on top of things. Donkey Kong also gets a new move here, where he turns invisible and can walk on surfaces that would otherwise hurt you. Yep, it's pretty lame by comparison. As I said earlier, Tiny and Lanky join your team here, and this is where it gets interesting. I'm not gonna lie, Lanky doesn't have anything special in this level, really. You just get him, his gun, an instrument, and then unlock his handstand walking, which is a cool move for getting up steep surfaces, but it's definitely used better later. Tiny, on the other hand, unlocks the shrinking ability and has several instances where she can use this to get into small doorways like a little mouse. I also like the little section where she gets carried up by a bird to the top of this tower. Just the whole aesthetic of being small is fun in the normal-sized world. I recognize it's a bit more situational, but it's still fun to discover things. Once again, everyone has their own colored bananas and golden bananas to collect. I realize I never properly went over collectibles, and I said I would. So here's the basic outline until I actually make that video about the collectibles. Each Kong has 5 golden bananas to collect in each level, each Kong has 100 colored bananas to stuff the hippo's face with, and each Kong can collect coins and blueprints to unlock upgrades as well. Those are the basics, but they really add up. This is something I feel you notice more in this level, as it's the first to have up to 4 Kongs, and doing things right and collecting as you go requires you to change your Kong constantly to pick up coins and bananas. Not to mention, each temple has a specific area for each Kong, and they have to unlock it by shooting the switch with their specific weapon. Yeah, it's as much of a pain as it seems. Not game-breaking, but still a pain. I think it's worth asking if anyone else developed real anxiety playing this game and experiencing the get out section of the temples where a target pops up and a timer starts. That always freaked me out, and I tried to move as fast as possible. When I finally mounted out, I got to say to the God of Death, "Not today." Talking about this level unfortunately brings up something I wanted to avoid as much as possible, and that's the minigame barrels. Now, as far as the minigames go, we get 2 of the better ones here so far. The fly swatting minigame and the sneaky maze minigame. Don't get me wrong, both aren't that great, but knowing what's to come has me rolling my eyes. Thankfully, I sped past these. Completing these minigames really is only necessary for 100% completion. So, casual players may want to avoid them entirely if possible. And trust me, you really do. Again, you have your stupid battle arena section, and that's all I'll say about this. Now it's time to stuff the hippo! Oh yeah, we'll feed you till you're bursting. Then we get to fight as Diddy against a giant dragonfly. I love the aesthetic of this boss, however, it's literally the same thing as the last boss, the armadillo, which makes me sad. This one could have been so much more, like we could have used Diddy's jetpack to fly around and shoot his eyeballs or something. I can't help but feel the programmers got lazy with this boss. It's okay, but it could have been better. It really just stinks that it's the same. Well, now that we beat it, I guess I started the trend of ranking the levels. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I'd give this level a 5 out of 10. The level's passable at best. I feel you get some cool power-ups, but considering you can use them in every other level, it doesn't make this one particularly amazing or stand out in any way. The music's okay, but nothing too memorable in comparison to Jungle Japes or DK Isle. The boss is disappointing for being the same, and a lot of the golden banana missions are really repetitive. I mean, how many times do you have to enter in the same temple and do the same thing over and over and over with each Kong before it gets too annoying and too tedious? Continuing on with our DK journey, we move into the next level, Frantic Factory. But before we do that, I wanted to make a quick pit stop. I was trying to say pit stop. We're taking a pit stop here at Fairy Island. Now that we've unlocked Tiny, we can enter in here and talk to the Banana Fairy Queen, where she gives you a camera to capture the fairies within the levels, and a move to release the multicolored coins from DK dirt patches, as well as a powerful shockwave that can hurt multiple enemies. Now that we have this, we can collect the fairies. It's not necessary to beat the game unless you want 100% it. Now, into the level we go! This is actually one of my personal favorite levels. The reason being, I just love the vibe the world gives off. It's kind of creepy and sad. Like, just listen to that little, like, like, the little jingle is just so, it's so subtle. It's very Toy Factory. I love it. It also gives you, like, super unique enemies to fight, like the robotic Kremlins and the little dice roll, and just awesome. I like the change of pace, how the level actually moves upwards. Like, rather than just going, you know, forwards or backwards and just extending out, it actually goes upwards. It's pretty cool. And even though the platforming can be kind of frustrating at times, it still plays pretty solid. And look at the sky. It's so cool looking. So here you can get a bunch of upgrades for each Kong. Lanky gets his inflation, Tiny gets her ponytail twirl, Diddy gets his tail bounce pad, and Donkey Kong unlocks pulling levers. Yep, that's right, pulling levers. Honestly, not only is this the dumbest power-up in existence, just the fact that Lanky can't do it with his long reach feels like a missed opportunity. I mean, why not make it a lever you just hit and it flips and make use of his reach? Whatever, they're situational. It's not that important. Here in this world, you also find Chunky, the last Kong to rescue. I really liked how his cage was different than the others and blended in with the vibe of the world. He's got so much personality. Once you collect enough coins as him, you can unlock the chunky barrels where he turns giant, his pineapple bazooka, which is the best gun in the game in my opinion, his triangle instrument, which is hilarious, and finally one of the best moves, his super punch. It's super satisfying to have things like gates to knock down and to just punch an enemy. It feels heavy and like you got a lot of power behind it. Chunky is great. We love Chunky. As this being the first world where you unlock all the Kongs, it's easy to get overwhelmed by seeing all the different colored collectibles. I think the designers may not have thought about it hard enough to place these properly. This level in particular had me switching to various Kongs over and over and over to get all the bananas and coins and balloons. Like, even in a single room, I could change my Kong like 3 times. Now, I find it really satisfying to collect all the bananas and get the happy monkey sounds at the end. However, I think they could have significantly improved this by potentially doing one of 2 things. Either 1, when making a trail for the Kong with bananas, make that an indicator that this Kong going down this path to collect this thing. Don't make me think Tiny needs to go down a path and then you flip it to Diddy all of a sudden. It's just confusing and sometimes frustrating. Or 2, which would be the best option, make it so you can change to the different Kongs whenever you want. Now, I'm not sure, this must have been prohibited by the power of the console at the time, but it would have been a great to, I don't know, be able to switch to a specific Kong by pressing L. L isn't designated for anything as far as I know. It would have been a good option, and not only for collectibles, but all the various pads, and even for traversal purposes. You can move around fast as Diddy, and then switch to Tiny to jump over a long gap, and so on and so forth. It generally would have improved the gameplay. I wish this was possible. But still, that isn't what we got, so everyone's just gonna have to deal with it. I'm still hoping for a sequel to this game. Nintendo should acquire Playtonic Games and make a proper sequel. Please. Now we have a few mini-games in this level too, and unfortunately we have some stinkers. I'm going to start with Tiny's mini-game when she shrinks. I realize I didn't mention the Beetle Slide and Angry Aztec, which is good. Something about collecting these coins in these mini-games is addicting. In this world we race an RC car, and to be honest, it's not super fun, but it's short, so it's tolerable. Then we have a special mini-game in the form of the original arcade Donkey Kong game. DK pulls a lever, and you can play. Voice crack. Wow. This is a super cool throwback. To get the golden banana, it's no big deal. However, for later in the game, you need to play this to acquire the Nintendo coin. And here's where I'm going to rant. This may be the single dumbest decision ever made. I didn't end up beating this game until I was a little older because I could never find the freaking other coin. I can't tell you how many times I played that stupid jetpack game because I got the rare coin from the jetpack game. It tells you to play the Cranky's game to get the rare coin, and I could never get the N64 coin. I was like, oh my gosh, how high do they expect me to freaking score? Only to find out, no, you play the DK arcade game to get the N64 coin. And the only prompt you get is after you beat the arcade game for the first time and get the golden banana, the parrot comes in and tells you, oh, beat this to get something special. That's it. If you skipped this banana, you would have no way of knowing. And pre-internet me never knew how. That's horrible. I couldn't finish the game for years because of this. I just didn't know. Okay, rant over. The other mini games don't need too much said. You got a DK barrel, blast one, a couple of bogus shoot the watermelon here ones that suck, a slot machine for some reason, and a run to the end to collect the coins, which is probably the best of the bunch. You also have Battle Arena, but now it's time for my favorite part. Stuff this mother-grabbing hippo. I will never get tired of this. And here we are, the boss. This is Tiny's boss fight, and I have to say, this may be my favorite boss fight in the game. I freaking love this boss. It's creepy, has unique gameplay. You fight him using a skill you upgraded and Tiny's moveset. I love that. The implementation of using a Kong-specific special ability makes this boss fight shine with unique gameplay, and it's fun. It never feels super stressful. It's just plain fun. This is a great, great boss fight. Well, now that we beat it, let's rate it. When all said and done, I really like this level, so it'll be my highest rated so far. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. It has a lot to offer. The only negatives I really have to say is how the collectibles are arranged, but let's be honest, that's every level basically in this game when you have all 5 Kongs. And the other thing is how when platforming upwards, sometimes the camera can be unforgiving, and I think that's just a sign of the times. Other than that, it's great. Glue me gallion. I guess let's take it from the top. Music. It's not horrible, but there's nothing memorable at all. The ingredients are there, but it just never sticks in your head like Jungle Japes or Frantic Factory. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact you're underwater the whole time, and it kind of muffles the sound. It's a cool effect, but it basically makes it that way the whole level. It's passable music, but it's nothing special. As far as upgrades are concerned, I got nothing. You can get an ammo upgrade for guns and instruments potentially, but Cranky won't have anything for you in particular. You do get to transform into Ongar the swordfish when playing as Lanky. At least that's something. And there is a little bit more to do as him than Rambi the Rhino. But it's the same basic idea. I mean, you break open something, smash a wall, and that's about it. There's just more of it. I personally think Rambi is more fun, even though it's shorter. Now, I like the idea of this level, with raising and lowering the water levels. It has a pirate theme, and you explore sunken ships and find treasure stashes. You even get to see K. Rool's ship. That's a nice touch from Donkey Kong Country. I find the lighthouse was cool to go in. It was a short section, but it was different, and it was fun to explore. One problem with this level is it's similar to Angry Aztec in you hit a switch and it opens up a pathway to a tunnel to explore, and then it looks very similar for every Kong. I like the way it looks with this little fish following you with a light, but it's also a little frustrating being underwater for all of it. Which brings me to the main problem. Oh, did you think it was constantly being underwater? Au contraire! The problem is how many times I encountered random invisible walls that stop me from moving! Sloppy camera control that causes frustration, and don't get me wrong, it's playable, but these bad moments will frustrate the heck out of you and make you want to chuck your controller on the floor and say, darn it to heck! There's one more big problem besides what I just mentioned. Even more unforgivable than the invisible walls. All those tunnels I mentioned to you, at almost every single one, rather than just finding a banana, it's a minigame barrel. Every freaking minigame barrel is garbage here. You have the Bugs Water one, which was okay before, but now it's progressively harder, and that makes it super annoying and almost impossible. You get more slot machine that's just plain awful and not fun at all. I don't know whose idea was to put it in and who made that game, but just, you suck. It's bad. It's not fun. Take it out. Why they thought these were a good idea, I don't know. The only one I didn't mind and accepted was the one where you swim underwater and try to collect coins before the timer goes out. This makes sense. It's a water level and a water minigame. It's not a slot machine. Get rid of that. Oh, and there is one cannon minigame that's chunky. That's not a barrel, but I was equally as frustrated. Aiming for the last target was a huge pain in the butt, and I had to do it so many freaking times. And not to mention, they spawn a Kremling right in the middle, one of these big guys that takes multiple hits to knock out. So, if you run out of ammo, you can't go quickly reload because he's in the way, and it just was a bad combination, and it left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was very upset and very frustrated. You do save a sea lion, and then you get to race him as Donkey on a little coconut boat thing, and that's okay. It wasn't the best racing game, but it was fine. But the rest of it can go away forever. I wouldn't be upset. Just a quick mention of the red Kremlings. I feel like this is the first time where they're really used in this game. I think we've briefly seen them, but they used to scare me as a kid. And honestly, I see why. They make a creepy noise and then chase you. They're a terrifying enemy. Everyone fear the red Kremling. Obligatory battle arena. We have a small section as Tiny picking up pearls for a mermaid. That's cool. I like swimming through the clams. It was fun. Oh, and another section where Diddy goes into a giant robotic fish and shoots its heart machinery. I liked that. What else? What else? Well, that's pretty much it for this level, honestly. Now we stuff the hippo. Oh, yeah. On to the boss fight. Here we're fighting a giant pufferfish. Actually, this is one of the few things I think is redeemable of this level. It's a totally different boss fight than any of the others so far. I've come to appreciate uniqueness in this game. You're lanky, and you have to drive your coconut boat thing through the stars until it raises these pillars to electrocute the pufferfish. Eventually you get it, and then he kind of just flies away like a little deflated balloon. It can be kind of challenging, honestly. I didn't die, but it was hard. Like, I was close every time, missing the timer. Like, it came down to the wire. But we got through it. And now my score. Well, I have to say, this is my least favorite level so far. Maybe in the whole game. I give it a 4 out of 10. There are aspects I want to like, but it's just bogged down by mediocrity in every way. Its biggest downfall is being buggy and filled with the minigame barrels. Next phase of our Donkey Kong 64 analysis is Fungi Forest, and dang, when I think back to this game, this is one of the levels I remember most. I want to start out by saying we have this little in-between world here, and you know, there's nothing to sneeze at. There is a cutscene, and you know, there's a cutscene before you enter each new world, and I don't think I've really mentioned that before. I briefly talked maybe about a few of them. They're all just kind of redundant and not super important, but I did like this one because it highlighted Lanky walking on his hands, and he's like taunting Kremlings, and I just thought it was funny, so I thought I'd include it in this one. The music is great. I feel like it has a happy changing of seasons kind of a sound with a happy xylophone and some dramatic brass. Then it goes into a strong melody with woodwinds. It's a solid track. It really helps encapsulate a sense of mystery and changes between day and night. More on that later. Also, could we move past the fact that I just had a major voice crack? Okay, thanks. This feels like a very large level, but it has variety. I feel like virtually every Kong has something special for them to do here. Except maybe Lanky drew the short stick, but even he has some unique stuff. Chunky gets a minecart ride that's fairly challenging, but it goes through the set piece of the level, and it's awesome. He also gets this dope section where he turns giant and has to save a giant apple with a worm in it from evil tomatoes by squishing them. I love it. Diddy has a fun time exploring. He gets the opportunity to use his jetpack to fly to places other Kongs can't. Tiny has a few instances where she shrinks and explores. The best part being she has a mini boss fight, and she fights these little spiders and this giant spider. It's awesome. Donkey gets his obligatory barrel blast minigame, but he has a cool section where his invincibility power lets him walk on thorns. I also enjoyed traversing through this world as all Kongs. It just was solid all the way around, and it was fun. There are dope night and day switches, so you can change it depending on where you want to explore, and it even changes the enemies in game. The creepy robotic skeleton sounding things exist in my nightmares. I've been dealing with this since I was a little kid. We get an upgrade from Funky in the form of homing ammo. It's very helpful for those tricky bats introduced here, and, you know, just to quickly take care of those bees that are super annoying. One thing I really have to bring up is that I feel like they gave you an even 50-50 split for when you accomplish something. You're either rewarded a golden banana straight up, or a minigame barrel. I feel it's counterproductive. You give me a task and I beat it, only to give me another task. And 90% of the minigames in this level are shoot the watermelon at this. Honestly, the snake spinning turtles is my second least favorite minigame so far, right behind Slot Machine. There was one minigame as Tiny where you had to collect coins. That one was good. All the rest, not so much. Battle Arena. And now, on to my favorite part. Stuff in the hippo. Grow, little hippo, grow! And now finally, we get a boss for Chunky this time around. I'm so excited. What could it be? You again? Ah, it's a familiar face. We're into this game for boss number 5, and we have a repeat, albeit he's a little better this time around. He starts out the same, but then Chunky gets his own twist on it by turning giant and punching the snot out of him. This is what Diddy's battle lacked. He could have used his jetpack and pistols to hurt him, and it would have been way more interesting. I'm glad they changed it up, but I think I still would have preferred a different boss. Alright, he's beaten. Now for my rating. Now, little kid me would probably tell you this was in my top 3. I'm gonna say now that I liked it enough, but it's too early to say. I think it's solid, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I did Frantic Factory or even Jungle Japes. I'm gonna give this one a solid 7 out of 10. This time venturing into the Crystal Caves. First we start in the in-between the island and level area. There's a blueprint and a banana or two to snag. Nice little easy tasks. Then there's another in-between cutscene where K. Rool shames the last boss. Something about seeing K. Rool walk like that just made me laugh. Anyways, into the level! Crystal Caves music starts off super relaxing. Something about this is very calming, like taking a leisurely stroll and exploring through a nice little cavern as a monkey. It's got a great melody, and it's pretty memorable and delicate chime and bell sounds. I really dig it. So coming back to this level, I totally forgot that there's an enemy that shakes the cave and makes stuff fall and potentially hurt you. When I reached the point in the level where this triggered, it actually jump scared the heck out of me, and the feeling of dread, like I just made a horrible mistake, freaked me out. This change in music really fuels your anxiety. The music is faster and has these intense tom drums bouncing. It got me. It got me good. Things eventually calm down. You get to hit up Candy's shop and get your 3rd health melon. It's about time. You can also stop at Funky's and get a small ammo upgrade. Now on to some of these bananas. Honestly, one of the first one DK gets in a hut was pretty fun. You get to play a minigame matching squares over a time limit in a room that you hit switches and can make rotate. I thought it was super fun. Battle arena's in this room, so I thought I might as well take some time to do it and get it out of the way. I'm ashamed to say how many times I had to replay it because I kept losing. It was bad. Trust me. Now, all the Kongs had their own similar rooms and huts, and they all had unique tasks. Tiny had to go in and defeat all the purple gator puppy things. Donkey had another room where he had to defeat bees and do a little hop over some collapsing floor gates. Diddy had a really cool one where he lit candles with his jetpack. I loved it. Chunky and Tiny both get upgrades from Cranky this time around. Chunky gets to use his pad where he turns invisible. It's silly because he leaves his clothes on, and Tiny gets to use her pad that allows her to teleport to another pad. Yeah, seriously. It's basically the banana warp points, but only Tiny can use them. So, in the last world, I said if anything I thought Linky may have drawn the short stick and not had as much. Well, here they made up for it. I know each Kong gets 5 bananas, but Lanky felt like he just had a lot more to offer in this level. His face was everywhere. Pads, pads, pads for days. He has a race in this map against a beetle, which is notorious for being hard. I'm really glad I saw people online saying it was hard because I thought I just sucked. I died over and over and over. But we got through it, and even though it was hard, I honestly really enjoyed it. I liked racing this beetle. It was fun. I should go off here and say that I did play Cranky's jetpack minigame and acquired the rare coin, so now I have both coins out of the way. Thank goodness. Ugh. Donkey had his barrel blast, per usual, but it ended in a minigame, which I am not a huge fan of. But fortunately, this was an okay one where he has to shoot around him and defeat the Kremlings. There are a few other minigames, but nothing we haven't seen before, and all are relatively easy, so I have little complaints about those this time around. For some reason on this level, other than the very beginning, collecting bananas felt like a breeze. I'm not sure, maybe they got the placement right and it was just better for character switching, but it didn't feel like too much where it can in other levels. There's an igloo that several Kongs can go into and each have their own unique minigame. All were pretty fun. I liked Chunky's especially, saving the bunny tied to an explosive, but you had to punch away the bad guy fire dudes. It was awesome. Tiny had a few shrinky areas, and Chunky had an opportunity to go giant, but nothing too much of note. Now we're on to the boss. But first, let's Stuff that hippo! And it's the Armadillo Part 2. He's back. He has a few more moves, but honestly, he's fairly easy. He has a homing missile and can fly in place and shoot faster, but nothing too challenging. Well, I beat him. Now time for my score. I didn't mind this level. It has good qualities, but there isn't anything particularly amazing or detrimental to it. I'd say it wasn't as good as Fungi Forest before it, so let's say a 6.5. This time we're entering into the creepy castle. We have a cool in-between world hub that you have to fly up via a cannon by K. Lumsies. You get a minigame barrel and a blueprint, otherwise nothing too much. As we enter the level, we get our typical cutscene, but this time K. Rool is sicking his creature on one of his own men who has been losing the blueprints for his machine. I like that little connectivity to us having collected most of them. Now, into the level we go! Immediately, this level's a vibe. The music is simple, with some organ-like samples doing a minimal progression over a simple piano key melody. Then some crotales come in and add to it. It definitely is very creepy and gives off a vibe. The aesthetic of the level also adds a lot with a giant moon and tons of lightning dramatically lighting the whole world outside. We get DK's Barrel Blast game at the beginning here, which is convenient. I like getting it out of the way. This time it opens a tree that we can go in and explore. However, to accomplish getting DK's banana in here, we need an upgrade from Funky, this coming in the form of a sniper shot for all the Kongs, which gives you the ability to zoom in and shoot faraway targets. They use it quite a bit in this level. Back to outside. Scaling this castle is a breeze with a direct pathway riddled with colored bananas. This felt like the easiest level to collect those colored bananas, as most follow a straight path. Again, I really like how this level is similar to Frantic Factory and adds moving upward to the mix rather than just moving forward. You get some cool special enemies. You have the return of the creepy skeleton Kremlings and the introduction of these Kremlings wearing a white sheet and pretending to be a ghost. They make me laugh. Cranky gives us an upgraded butt slam in this world, which will be our final one. This will allow us to hit the red switches. Candy Kong also gives us an instrument upgrade for more charges, but that's all. Each Kong's collectible bananas feel pretty straightforward. There are some pathways into different areas of the castle. It's cool to discover them and see what lies inside. I did, however, have one section in the museum that I couldn't figure out how to solve with Junkie. I don't remember, and it was hard. It's the only banana I didn't get in this world. If you know how, let me know in the comments. Tiny had some fun shrinking sections, including one where she had to beat flies up. She also gets a rematch race with the RC car that takes place in Frantic Factory again? That was a weird decision. Linky had a maze where he has to get to the end before the timer's out, which was pretty simple. Not only do you get a banana, but you also get the Battle Arena pad, so I'll just beat that right away. He also has an inflation section over acid. I honestly think after playing this enough, I've changed my opinion on the inflation move. I said I disliked it, but now I'm indifferent. It does have a certain level of charm, but they just don't use it the way it should. For example, you inflate and go into this hot air pocket in this room, but rather than just floating to the top, you float up a bit, it shuts off, and you float up normally the whole way. What a weird decision. I'm wondering if maybe it's just a glitch. Diddy Kong gets another cool jetpack lighting candles section. The vibe here is much creepier. I dig it. There are a few sections, like I said, where you need to use the upgraded sniper scope for your weapons. Pretty straightforward. You shoot the target before progressing or the gold disappears. Unfortunately, we have some of the worst minigames in the game here. Got another one of those watermelons shooting at snakes, spinning turtles, which is just not very fun. But here, we have the one that DK64 is notorious for. Beaver Bother. Gosh, this is infuriating. You play as the little croc and try to push the beavers into the hole. It's glitchy. So sometimes you push a beaver to the hole and they just don't go in. Thankfully, I didn't have to redo it more than once, but still not good. Not good at all. and I can go my whole life without ever hearing another cheep, 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 cheep ever again. DK gets a super fun minecart ride. I love all of these, however, this one definitely is the hardest one to date, and it adds a creepy ghost to swipe at you as you ride. But I beat it. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Stuff that hippo! And now we enter the boss fight. And I gotta say, I love it! Another completely unique boss fight in the form of a cardboard cutout K-Rool. Basically, he shows up and you have to launch your Kong out of a cannon right into it. Do it enough times and you lose his body parts. But if you miss, you lose that Kong. It almost treats getting hurt like classic DK Country in that the Kong disappears rather than your melons. I thought it was a nice touch. It's also cool to be able to switch Kongs in a boss fight if you want. It was funny, charming, and most importantly fun to beat. And now for the rating. I really like this level. I'd say it's probably my second favorite just behind Frantic Factory, and I like it for similar reasons. I'm going to give this level an 8 out of 10. This is it, guys. The final hurrah. We're at the very last level for our Donkey Kong 64 journey. The last level doesn't have as much to unpack, however, the final boss is a level in and of itself. We start by entering the mouth of K-Rool's ship thing, and we get a small section where we can get a blueprint for Donkey. We enter the level, and see our cutscene. K-Rool's nodding off only to be awakened by an alarm. The Kongs are here. In a panic, he starts charging his machine to blast DK Isle. Thankfully, it's revealed what collecting all the blueprints did. Our weasel friend is able to delay the machine from working with the blueprints you collected. The more you collect, the longer you get. I was missing a handful of blueprints, so I got about 42 minutes. I'm assuming it maxes out at about 45, but this is way more than enough time. Immediately coming in here, the music gives you a sense of urgency. There's no collectibles, so you're purely moving through the level, switching to Kongs as necessary to progress. You get a little counter at the bottom to show your remaining time left, which also adds a sense of urgency. You get to the room with the machine, and just a quick battle arena at the top you can take care of, the last one in the game. You notice locked doors, and Diddy unlocks the rooms by flying through stars triggered by DK pulling a lever. Each room is unlocked by a chunky punch and a specific character's instrument. Once inside, you have to play 2 minigames for each Kong to shut off the power. These minigames are actually good! They take game mechanics and give you challenges. Nothing like Beaver Bother, that's for sure. You beat them all and can collect the banana medals while shutting off power to the laser. Once you shut them all off, you approach K-Rool, who flies off in his chair, revealing an escape ship. Now we can head into his office space that we've seen in every cutscene. Notice the door that has the 2 coins? For those who've been watching, you'll know I snagged these along the way, but to summarize, you get one by playing the DK arcade machine in Frantic Factory, and another from playing Cranky's Jetpack game. Once you have them, you can open the door, grab the fairy, and the final key. Go back out into the world and finally unlock K. Lumsey's cage. We get a cutscene where K-Rool tries to fly off, and our boy knocks him out of the sky, living up to his name. This leads us into the final battle. This final battle is pretty amazing, and a worthy final boss. You do an untraditional boxing match against K. Rool. Wait, what did he just say? Each Kong gets a moment in the sun. DK fires himself out of barrels at K. Rool until he knocks him out. But those dirty Kremlings cheat and ring the bell to save him.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Saved by the bell.
Diddy flies his jetpack up and knocks the lights down on K. Rool's head. Lanky breaks barrels to reveal banana peels, then he summons him with his trombone to make K. Rool slip on the banana peels. Tiny shrinks down into his shoe and shoots her feathers at his toes till they hurt. And finally, Chunky gets big and punches him in the face. As we believe the fight's over, K. Rool tries to cheat, but he's distracted by Candy, and Funky comes in and offers the finishing blow with a boot to the butt. And boom! We did it. We finished. Now we're treated to the endgame cutscene where K. Rool gets some punishment and is sent flying, and we see everyone having a good time. Now, the final verdict on DK64. If you wanted to go back and get bananas, you'd have to backtrack as all Kongs starting at level 1. There is a total of 201 bananas to collect. I ended somewhere in the ballpark between 150 and 160. I don't remember exactly. Now after playing through this all and really peeling it back, I see this game's shortcomings. I also see why I loved it as a kid. If nothing else, you can't help but appreciate its charm and fun gameplay. You don't have to collect everything, which is most people's main concern. So if you're afraid of huge collectathons, don't be. You don't have to collect it all. This ain't Pokemon. Overall, I want to give DK64 8 golden bananas out of 10. The charm, the animations, the graphics, the sheer quantities of everything make this game a classic and a must-have for N64 owners. If you've never played it, I really suggest you do. Well, that's all I have. Now that we've completed our DK64 adventure, we're moving on. I hope you'll like, subscribe, and hit that noti bell. Let me know in the comments what you think of DK64, and did you get all the collectibles? Until next time, have a good one!